That morning started the same way a lot of mornings do, quiet, ordinary. The kind of calm that makes you think nothing important is about to happen, and that's usually when it does, because 3 minutes later I was standing on a front porch staring at a man in a green tactical vest who looked me straight in the eye and said with all the confidence in the world, "This is a federal operation. You need to back off." And in that moment, something in my gut said, no, this is wrong, and if I walk away right now, somebody innocent is about to pay for it. I've been a cop a long time, long enough to know that the most dangerous situations don't start loud. They start polite. They start with badges flashed too quickly, and words like federal authority procedure, you know what I mean? The kind of language meant to shut people up, not inform them. And that morning when dispatch sent me to a call about immigration agents forcing their way into a house, I didn't expect a shootout or a chase. I expected paperwork, misunderstandings, maybe fear, a lot of fear. And I was right about one thing. Fear was everywhere, but it wasn't coming from the people in uniform. I pulled onto that cul-de-sac, and the first thing I noticed was the SUV blacked out windows. Civilian plates parked like it belonged there, even though it didn't. No markings, no lights, nothing that said government. And the front door was cracked open just enough for voices to spill out. Men's voices sharp and patient, and a woman's voice tight, trying not to shake. And when I knocked and announced myself, everything stopped like a room going silent when the wrong person walks in. The guy who stepped out first was white, late 30s, buzz-cut mask, pulled high vest, screaming ICE in big letters. And he looked annoyed, not surprised, annoyed, like I was a parking ticket in the middle of his day. And he said, "Officer, we've got this federal matter." And I said, "Calm. Even I need to see your credentials badge and ID right now." And he hesitated just a beat, but it was enough. And he said he'd show me after they secured the scene. And I remember thinking, yeah, that's not how this works, because people who really have authority don't get nervous when you ask them to prove it. Another guy stepped up behind him, younger, twitchy eyes bouncing, and he said they didn't have time for this, that they had authority to enter the residence. And that's when I felt it shift, that little internal click from routine call to something else entirely, because authority doesn't rush authority documents. And I told them if they had the right to be there, they'd have paperwork, warrants, orders, something in writing. And until I saw it and verified who they were, nobody was going anywhere. The first guy puffed up, asked if I was interfering with a federal operation. And I said I was responding to a homeowner who called 911 because people were trying to force their way into her house. So yeah, I was going to verify, and when he finally handed over a badge wallet, it looked good at first glance. That's the scary part. Fake authority usually does, but the details were off. The hologram didn't catch light, right? The ID number format was wrong, and when you've worked joint cases, when you've trained with real federal agents, you see those things and you don't ignore them. I told both of them to step outside, hands visible, and I asked for the third person in the house to come out too, and that's when I saw her. The homeowner standing behind them, phone still in her hand, face pale, eyes locked on me like I was the only solid thing in the room. And I asked if she was okay, and she said they tried to come in. They said they were ICE. They said they didn't need a warrant. And yeah, that happened right there in a quiet suburban living room on a Tuesday morning. I called for backup, told dispatch I had 3 individuals claiming federal authority with fraudulent credentials, attempted illegal entry, and one of the guys shifted his weight like he was thinking about running, and I put my hand near my weapon and told him not to because this was already bad enough. Backup arrived fast, we separated them, and I went inside to check on the family, and there was nothing. No paperwork, no posted notices, no signs of any legitimate operation, just a husband, a wife, and their teenage daughter standing too close together like they were bracing for something else to go wrong. And the wife told me they knocked, showed vests, said they were looking for someone with a generic name. And when she said that person didn't live there, they insisted on searching anyway, said they didn't need a warrant, tried to push past her. And the only reason they didn't get in was because she planted her feet and called 911, even though she was terrified of what that might mean. And that part stuck with me because that kind of fear doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from years of being told you don't have rights, that authority is absolute, that questioning it will cost you everything. Outside, my supervisor took one look at the badges and said they were garbage serial numbers, wrong holograms, printed, not embedded. And when we ran the names, the whole thing cracked open. None of them were federal agents. All of them had records, fraud, burglary, impersonation. And when we searched the SUV, we found more vests, more fake badges, face coverings, zip ties, cash jewelry, and a list of addresses, mostly immigrant neighborhoods written down like a grocery list. And that's when it stopped being a weird call and became something heavier. Because this wasn't a mistake, it was a business model. The investigation that followed showed they'd been doing this for months, hitting family after family, counting on fear to keep people quiet, taking money, heirlooms, things that couldn't be replaced, and threatening deportation if anyone talked. And the reason it worked is because fear works, especially when it wears a uniform. When the case went to trial, the body cam footage told the story better than any of us could. You could see the moment the confidence drained out of them, the moment they realized they weren't dealing with someone who would just nod and step aside, and victim after victim testified not just about what they lost, but about what it felt like to have strangers force their way into their home under the color of law, about kids watching, about not sleeping, about checking the door twice, 3 times every night. And the defense tried to say it wasn't violent, that nobody got hurt physically, but anyone who's lived through that kind of fear knows better. Psychological violence is still violence, and terror doesn't leave bruises you can photograph. The verdict was guilty on all counts. The sentence 7 years each, and when the judge read it out, there wasn't cheering, just this collective exhale, like people had been holding their breath for a long time. And afterward, the woman from that first house came up to me and thanked me. Not for the arrest, but for checking, for not assuming, for not letting a vest and a badge override common sense. And I told her that calling was the hardest part, because it was, and it always is. That case ended up being used in training, not because it was dramatic, but because it was ordinary, because it showed how easily authority can be faked, and how important it is to verify. And ICE itself put out warnings telling people to ask for warrants, to call police, to not open doors to anyone who refuses to prove who they are. And still people argue about it, about whether questioning authority is obstruction, about whether fear excuses silence, about where the line is between enforcement and abuse. And that's why I'm telling you this, because this isn't just about 3 guys who went to prison. It's about how many people they hurt before they got caught, and how close it came to happening again that morning, and how one decision, one phone call, one officer saying, "Show me your ID," changed the outcome. So I want to know what you think, because this stuff matters. If you were in that house, would you have opened the door? If you were in my shoes, would you have walked away? Have you ever seen someone use a uniform to bully or intimidate? And did anyone stop it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell your story, agree, disagree, argue it out, because the more we talk about this, the harder it gets for fear to do all the work.